Some leaders are always at the front, always pushing and really kind of loud and busy. That's not me. I like to sit back. I like to grow people, support people. I really give them what they need to be successful. It's very easy to say, let go and let other people do the job. But you also need to understand that they're doing a good job. You have to be able to trust that they're delivering. And you have to very quickly get behind those people that have your back, trust your vision, and will challenge you, but also do a fantastic job day to day. If you choose the right people, then all of a sudden you feel like everything's amazing, but that's because the people that are supporting you and you're supporting are also amazing. The only way you can get through it is to breathe through it. The minute that you plunge into icy cold water, you forget to breathe and you panic and you stress, and that's how you drown. It's really important to be able to control your emotions, to write things down, to talk through things, talk about ideas. That works for me to cool the emotions and make me think more analytically. Then often solutions pop up. I'll be thinking about, okay, well, how can I turn this into a 5 million, 10 million pound business? How do you disrupt? What are we doing differently here? How do we turn this into a multi-million pound machine that prints money?
Welcome to the iGaming Leader podcast, where we uncover the human side of some of the most inspirational leaders in our industry. I'm your host, Leo Judkins, and as an ex-iGaming director turned performance coach, I've worked with over 200 leaders from companies like Entain, 365, Flutter, and many more to help them build the habits to achieve sustainable high performance. In these episodes, we share exactly what it takes for you to achieve the same. So with that being said, let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome to the iGaming Leader podcast. I'm here with Daniel Brookes, who's either brilliant or completely mad, probably both. Dual founder, hands-on CEO. He runs both BetComply and Rdentify as the CEO, and hugely impressive man and very empathetic leader who tends to turn moments of crisis into opportunities for innovation. He's also dad, has a strong sense of what it means to balance leadership with his personal life. And yeah, Daniel, thank you for joining. I've been really excited to talk to you today.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to talk about the first time we met, actually. That's where I wanted to start. On a boat in Malta, and I actually didn't really know what you did, right? Because we just got to talking. But mate, I was super impressed. You clearly super experienced, very good listener, very empathetic, very inspiring, I thought. And that was my first impression of you. But I'm really curious, like how would you describe yourself as a leader? Let's start there.
I would say I'm a thoughtful leader. So what do I mean by that? Well, some leaders are always at the front, always pushing and really kind of loud and busy. Everybody knows who they are, which is fantastic. And that's your quintessential leader. That's not me. I'm an introvert, extrovert. I like to sit back. I like to grow people, support people. I really give them what they need to be successful. I think in terms of being a leader, it's really important to do everything that everyone else would do, but also know to stop and when to go. So I try and I'd say I'm more of a mentor leader than anything else.
I'd love to dive into that for a sec, because I think it's one of the hardest kind of pivots you make as a founder as well, right? So on the one hand, definitely you need to get your hands dirty. You need to actually understand what the stuff is that the business needs to go through and what needs to happen. But then that moment of letting go, right? That's, for some people, that is so hard. Even if you're a mentor type of guy or you're really good at delegation, I think just kind of knowing when to pull back and go, all right, now I still stay involved a bit, but I'm not micromanaging here anymore, is one of the hardest pieces. And how's that gone for you in these businesses and maybe historically through your career?
You know, I like to do things and I feel like I can do things quite well. So I kind of made a step quite a while ago now, and it was ops director to COO. And as an ops director, I still was quite hands-on. I was busy and I knew what was going on with all the teams, had my head in all the detail. And I got to COO and I was finding myself doing the same thing. And I remember having a conversation with someone that I really respect. They were like, Danny, you can't do it. You need to lead from the top. You need to trust the team to be able to deliver. And that's a skill in itself. And it took me a little while to really understand that skill because it's difficult. It's very easy to say, let go and let other people do the job. But you also need to understand that they're doing a good job. You have to be able to trust that they're delivering. And some people won't deliver for you sometimes. And by stepping back, you need to be able to quite quickly understand and trust your gut that they're not delivering, just like the ones that are delivering or have the capability to do. And you have to very quickly get behind those people that have your back, like trust your vision, and will challenge you, but also do a fantastic job day to day. That's the skill in it for me. It's if you choose the right people, then all of a sudden you feel like everything's amazing. But that's because the people that are supporting you and you're supporting are also amazing.
Because even if you have the right people, very often I certainly did for very many years. I got in my own way where I thought, oh, I could still do it faster, or it's not exactly how I wanted it. And of course, the way I wanted in my head is not necessarily the best way, but that's kind of how you think about these things, right? So even if you've got really good people, they're obviously going to do it slightly differently, and it's obviously not going to have the same standards. Have you found that as you kind of grew from that director to C-level to founding businesses, how's that gone for you?
It's difficult sometimes because you can go on a journey. So you provide that trust, and people will say to you, well, I really want to do this. I've got this idea, or I think we should move in this direction. And you go, okay. And sometimes you can find yourself meandering, round and round, and you know that you could just cut to the point. And sometimes you need to. So I have got examples, where someone's kind of done that meandering journey. I've left them to it, and it's taken them a little while, but finally they're doing something really good that I might not have got to if they didn't go on that journey. But I also have it quite regularly where they're meandering, and it's still my job to say, you're, you're meandering. Let me talk to you, and I'll coax them through it and show them where they need to be and how to get there. And I want to make it clear that if you ask someone about me, they will say that I'll guide, but they'll also say I'm very straightforward,
Yeah.
deadly honest with you as well. Like I'm with a member of staff. If there is something that we need to change, and there's a direction that we need to get to, it's very clear where we've got to get to. What's that star that got that North Star that we want to hit? Then we can work through the points to be able to get there. But the best way to do that is obviously for them to feel like that they're engaged in that process and also that they're delivering those steps. It is to ask the right questions as opposed to demand a solution.
It's the hard bits, isn't it? Where sometimes being too nice or being too polite, like actually doesn't get you anywhere. It just makes the problem bigger.
Yes.
I mean, from early on in your career, have you always been like that, Danny? Or is that something that's changed over time that or maybe learned from others in your career that you saw that were managing you? How did that form itself?
I think in my early career, I was managed really badly, but I saw it done badly. And these were very low key jobs. They were hard work, customer support roles, KYC roles, retail roles, whatever I was doing as a young man. And I think as a young person, I was probably had ideas, had thoughts, wanted to do different things. I was very much boxed in and told you do it this way. And it took me a couple of jobs. I mean, I got fired a few times as a young man before I realized that to be able to implement ideas and to be thoughtful and to improve things, I just needed to get my head down for a few years and do what I was told, even if it didn't make sense, until I climbed the ladder to a point where I can affect change. So that really affected my psyche as to how to do things. And it always made me realize, well, I don't want to be that type of manager. What I also saw, again, probably as a mid manager, is our CEOs that were extremely forceful and passionate in their vision that brought you along for the ride and you wanted to please. Now, there was a very specific journey to get to that, but you felt like you belonged in that space and wanted to deliver whatever it is that, the board or the business wanted to deliver at that time. Those type of leaders that were very clear in vision and know we're going to do this, but you wanted to please, they were, I guess, SMEs, some medium-sized business that had been funded maybe, once or twice and really had a mission. And those people moved quickly and they iterated and they iterated on the business. That's how I culturally set up the businesses that I work in now. It's speed of operations, it's iteration, it's being clear with each other while supporting the people in the business that can help it succeed, and bringing them with you and eventually, lifting everybody up. But it's that message. We don't do things slowly. We're always in startup mode. And yes, we have process. Startup doesn't mean just do anything however you want it to do. There's process to getting it done, but we move quickly. We don't have bureaucracy, and we push forward and we make mistakes and we learn from the mistakes. The people that can work in that way are the people that I tend to collect around me.
Yeah, I really love that, Danny, because it's such an important piece. Kind of what you're saying there is, I think it's very true in operational roles where you're just told what to do and you just got to do it. And that's not motivating at all, right? The motivation comes from understanding why you're doing something and how that actually contributes to the bigger piece, right? Which is like the vision, whatever that is. So yeah, so you're talking about kind of having people around you. You've been working with several people for for some time. But the thing that struck me the most is, like, I speak to a lot of founders, and founding a business is just that's a whole different world of pain, right? Something that most people never come to realize, but it's a whirlwind of emotion. There's a sort of ups and downs of like catastrophe and managing like all these crazy things that you don't even think about beforehand. You've done it twice at the same time, more or less, right? So you're in the middle of two startups. Like that's just the next level crazy in my mind. So what happened there, and how did you get to this point where you
The buses came at the same time.
right?
So I've been pottering around with Ridentify for a while. I knew to find a core purpose for an idea that I thought was great. And initially that took me on a journey. So initially, before the kind of AI NLP wave, the recent one with large language models, I was trying to look at language and using natural language processing or ways to understand what people were saying in conversations. And over the years, that's taken me on a few different kind of journeys and opportunities, which has allowed us to expand. And I've got to a position with that business where it isn't a huge business, but it's successful and it generates income. And I have a very strong team within it, people that I trust. Yeah. And that's allowed me to focus on vision and be able to say, well, actually, we're in stealth mode right now, Leo, to be honest, where we're building something. We're still providing our services and we're releasing it. But I know that's ongoing. I know what I need to do there to make it successful. And that isn't me sitting in front of my computer for 9 hours a day. It's talking to the people and allowing people to know what they're doing to build and to develop what it needs to do. And one day I was at one of the events, it might have been SBC, and I got approached by two industry professionals that I know very well, Mike DeGraff and Martin Hodges. And they told me about what they wanted to do in terms of consultancy in compliance, and how they wanted to be built on trust and integrity, and how in the industry it's compliance businesses, but sometimes they feel like that is lacking, and they wanted to do something different in the space. I was instantly bought into that message. So it was more of a case of, okay, well, how can I help? Structure, strategy, direction. But again, I've got Mike DeGraff and Martin Hodges and Luce, who's the ops director there, working in that business. Okay. They are highly competent people, and what they need from me is someone that they can talk to, discuss their ideas with, brainstorm, and develop it. And sometimes to say, no, let's do something different. Or actually, yeah, guys, you're really going in the right direction, carry on, everything's fine. So I'm not in the muck. I'm CEO of those businesses, but I see myself more as a director in those businesses, mentoring and providing support for the team that I've built to deliver. And that's a model that you can repeat. That isn't me stuck in the mud with my head spinning all the time. Sometimes it does, and every business has its moments. And you hope that you don't get too busy moment at a time. Ultimately, these are scalable things. And I'm always looking for people that I want to work with that have an idea that I can support.
Especially where they've come from, right? Their background, which we won't talk about, but like I can see how that's has turned into something where they want to be the opposite of that, and that really aligns with your values as well. So that makes a lot of sense. And but I'm sure, like, even if you're not stuck in the mud, you're not involved, like, I don't know, whatever, funding, cash flow, like all of those things, right? They weigh heavy on us. So I mean, what have been some of the more difficult moments that you've had where maybe two things happened at the same time in two different businesses with, two different groups of people? What were some of the challenges that you faced there?
Don't get me wrong. I talk about not being stuck in the mud, but there's been many nights where I've woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning with my head spinning, thinking about all the different things that we need to juggle in the different businesses. I've had days where I've sat there and I've not really achieved much because I'm full of thoughts and worries, and stuff like that. I've had times where, cash flow has been tight and I've had to raise money very quickly, to pay staff in different businesses. I've had times where I've had what I thought was a large client. We invested a lot of money into them, into building a product to recuperate that, who last minute let me down. All of these things have happened, which we all know, like, as a small business, you spend a lot of time working on things and trying to develop solutions. And as a small business, larger business often forget the net effect of them not paying an invoice, or not renewing an agreement last minute, without too many reasons, what that causes to a business. And the only way you can get through it, you mentioned to me at the beginning that you boxed a little bit. One of the events is to breathe through it. The minute that you, to use another analogy, plunge into icy cold water, you forget to breathe, and you panic and you stress, and that's how you drown. It's really important to be able to control your emotions. Take a pen and paper sometimes, to write things down, to talk through things, talk about ideas. Sometimes they can be completely wrong with people at those moments. And that works for me to cool the emotions and make me think more analytically. And when what you are thinking analytically and you're considering, then often solutions pop up.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? Especially if when it's a small business and it's yours, you've emotionally invested so much into it, then any sort of business decisions by others, like, almost affect, well, not almost, they affect you personally, right? And outside of the emotion, and then if it also has financial consequences, then the burden is on your shoulders for how that might affect the business and everybody who works in there, who you've brought on your journey that you're now responsible for. So I love what you're saying. I was talking to Max Meltzer on the podcast yesterday, and we are talking about the same thing, journaling, and how he's used that. Is that as a coping mechanism, Danny? Is that something that you've kind of discovered out of nowhere? Were you initially struggling with kind of how to let go of the stuff that perhaps you couldn't talk to anybody else about in the business? How did that kind of happen?
I think as a young man, I used to write a little bit, and I don't think I realized it at the time. I used to have, it was one of the first mobiles that allowed you to write nicely. I don't think I realized it at the time, but I think even then it was a coping mechanism, a way to express. Yeah, so I think I've always done it a little bit, and I always found, even when I was studying, I'd always write everything down, and that's how I memorized things and thought about things. So it's something that I've always done, but maybe it's become a little bit more thoughtful as times progress. So yeah, just writing down what it is that you're trying to achieve, what's happened, and breaking it down allows me to fully comprehend what it is that I'm trying to achieve. I love technology, so I also use AI for that. So creating, like, private specific GPTs where I can have a back and forth with someone that isn't human, where I can kind of consider my ideas, think through them, and just almost rationalize what I'm trying to achieve. So yeah, for me that's important. And I'm probably someone that, for all my talk about other people and bringing other people on, I'm not always the most open. I can easily close down and compartmentalize things internally. And I might say, well, that's to help others around me. My partner and my children don't want to know about my struggles in the workplace. If there is a struggle, they want to know about my joys in the workplace. They want to see me happy. So that natural tendency to push things down, writing, and that's a channel, isn't it, to that and get that out.
Super important. And I think I mean, it's certainly something that most CEOs, founders are stuck with at any level, really. You know, the stuff that you can't really talk. Cash flow is a great example, right? If there's cash flow issues, who are you going to talk to? Not your not your wife. She probably heard you speak about the business too much already. Not your friends, don't own a business, don't get it. Certainly not your employees because they're going to freak out that they're going to lose their job. So where do you leave that? So journaling is one thing. Are there any other things that you do to kind of people that you talk to, or things that you do to help you with opening up when your tendency is to close down?
It's less about opening up and more about taking myself out of the situation. I go for walks. So I've got a beautiful lab German Shepherd, and if I'm overthinking or need some space, I'll go out for a long walk. I take time and try and switch off, but also sometimes just mull through the issues in a different environment. I love working from this ability to be able to work from home or the office. You get so many benefits from being in different environments. I think though, sometimes you can get stuck in a certain place. That can be just as easy behind your desk in an office, out as in your office and home at home in the spare room. But I just think that there's this tendency to really get tunnel vision by being in one place for too long. So, if anyone ever says to me, "Oh yeah, I'm just going for a walk and I haven't taken my meeting at the same time," like I always say, absolutely, gives you that ability to consider things in a different way.
Yeah, it's what we did here in Jib as well, right? Just meet in a coffee shop. It's nice and easy. Takes us away from the office. I think it's yeah, it's really powerful. Hey, we talked about some of the challenges. Let's talk about the opposite part of that. Like, maybe it's the same thing. I don't know. What are some of the what's your proudest moments? What's something that you've really proud of? Maybe not necessarily with these business, could be, but just throughout your career. What's the moment when you think back? That's maybe really proud. What's that specific moment for you?
There's been the moment where I felt a freedom to be able to act. So when I wasn't very tied to my 9 to 5 job and I had the opportunity to be able to build and develop things, that was a kind of eureka moment for me. It allowed me to really focus on what I was passionate about. So that's been massive. More recently in BetComply, we had certain KPIs, certain customers that we wanted to bring in, certain revenue figures that we wanted to bring in, and basically seeing the speed and execution of that's been electric for me. And in Identify, it's seen people coming through the ranks. Like Daisy won't appreciate me saying this, but it's seen someone coming in like on a biz dev kind of level and building their own kind of identity in the business. And I spoke about that meandering journey, which took a long time earlier on, and then finally kind of starting to get to a point where, yeah, this is an excellent idea. So watching people starting to really deliver like that, and starting to really bring in their own revenue has been fantastic. I'm someone like I love to get that big deal. Don't get me like I really love to get that big deal. But the kind of fireworks for me is when we kind of achieved this vision and people are all bought into it and we're all talking around the table and everybody's kind of aligned and we know we're doing well and we're having that congratulatory beer and say, well done, we're going in the right direction. They're the moments that really stick in my mind.
It makes so much sense. It's never the finish line, right? It's kind of the journey. It's the run itself.
Yeah, yeah, that's really true.
Amazing. Makes a lot of sense, and it's cool that your proudest moments are all in the people. So when you like one of the things you mentioned before is that you made some really strong decisions under financial pressure. And the financial pressures, especially in a startup, any founder will know how hard that is. So tell me a little bit more about those moments where, you genuinely thought like one or maybe even both businesses might not survive. And how did you deal with it?
But I've had moments where I've been like, okay, well, cash is coming in a week's time, and I've got to pay the bills this week. So I've like a shortfall or cap, for instance. And those moments are very scary because I think at the back of your mind, you know that you're going to get through it. The solutions, but it's really finding those solutions. And there's been times where I've been down the wrong path. I think I was doing a round table about this, and I was talking about how with Ridentify, for example, I had this idea that people or operators in our industry would want to be able to identify customer vulnerability in conversations, especially in regulated markets. All the initial feedback I got from that was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. That's really interesting. But ultimately, no one really wants to put their hand in the pocket when it comes down to the decision to be able to find that out and to be able to do that, because there's other uses for that cash. And these are mistakes that you make, big mistakes, because you have a whole R&D team building that out, data scientists building that out. And you can see little old me in the front talking to people about it, but they've got no idea that there's people working on those things. And even if it's a team of 5 to 10, they're on 60 grand each. You know, there's a burn rate there, right? There's a runway that you so kind of is, I find, going through that and then getting to a position where you're like, actually, you know what, we're not getting traction here. We need to pivot, different. That's a very hard decision. It's extremely brave to be able to do it, able to go, okay, no, this whole brainchild that you've done, this vision that you've sold everybody else on, me, is it? Like, I've obviously raised capital and different things. So then going back and going, okay, well, no, I need to change that. I need to go in a different direction. It's still going to work, but we're going to utilize it differently, is really difficult and really brave. And people talk to me about that a lot. And they come up to me and they tell me about these things and kind of like how they're making decisions, and then how, well, it's not quite worked out, and how to change that. In businesses, you call it change management, but before you can do change management and you can pivot, you have to change yourself. It's obviously something that you know a lot about in terms of what you do with your coaching. Yeah, and for me, knowing and realizing that a change was needed, that was probably more difficult for me as a process than having to find an extra 20,000-30,000 pounds because we've got 2 weeks of before our next payment comes in, because that mindset change.
Yeah, it's so difficult, right? I had, Vladimir from Xanada Investment. I had him on the podcast, and he was talking about how important it is just to get dollars through the door, right? Just, it doesn't even matter how much it is. Just get someone to pay for the idea that you think is great, because just like you said, Danny, right? That people will tell you amazing idea, but unless the hand actually goes into the pocket, it doesn't matter, right? But I'd also like to talk about the opposite side of that. I believe that often as a small business, one of the disadvantages is that you can actually pivot so quickly. And let me just really explain that real quick. You're in a large business, right? Like, the business is going to stay, you're going to stay a sports book forever, right? You're not going to all of a sudden become, I don't know, like a telecom operator or something. In a small business, the opposite, right? You're like a speedboat instead of an oil tanker. You can pivot like that. But it also means that a lot of founders, they don't stay the journey for long enough to actually be known for the thing that they're going to be doing or the service that they're going to be delivering. So how do you balance that in an example like you've just had, right, where you've got this sunk cost fallacy, right? You've got all this sunk cost that you've already put in. There's a lot of opportunity cost there that you still think about. When is the decision enough is enough, and now we've got to pivot?
Let me unpack it, because there's a few different things that you said there. Okay, so I think the first thing is, at the beginning of the question, you noted that a larger entity, you want to move from being a sports book to a telecom provider. I don't think you do that as a startup or an SME either. So when developing, I used the example before of Ridentify, and I talked about customer vulnerability. When I developed that, what was I developing? Well, I was developing a really amazing way to analyze conversational data, right? That's what I was doing. I was using specific tools to be able to do that in a way that allowed me to scale it. I was building a front end that provided data and analysis and interesting stuff. We do a lot of, like, for account managers and customer support, we do a lot of analysis of the agents and the account managers and how they're performing and what the customer cares about and stuff. So when I moved into that, I wasn't completely rebuilding. I was building different data models in the background, and I was creating new endpoints into my front end to provide that. So it was a change of direction, but not a change of the business's identity. Is still core to it. It's identity, it's data, it's conversations. And I would rather look at when you say about how you kind of present that to your customers, so they can see that, that can be difficult, and obviously that comes through communication and really excellent marketing. But with me, I think it's more interesting to look at the different businesses. So how can Daniel Brookes do all these different things? You must be spinning a lot of plates, and if you spin a lot of plates, you drop, right? How can you be doing all these different things? That's the interesting part about how you explain that to people and how you get that across. I'm a founder. That's what I am. Uh, I'm a master at understanding opportunity and what people need to be successful. I'm very good at understanding how my skill set can help someone else be successful and knowing where what they do well. Okay. And by doing that, this isn't the Daniel Brookes show. None of my businesses are about my face and me, but ultimately I'm allowing other people to be successful because I'm good at understanding how to make things happen. That's really the message. If it was a business, I'd be looking to put across. So whatever it is that's your key core skill, you focus in on that and make sure people understand, if I need this skill, I go there. If I need this, go to this place.
It's about creating the environment, the surface area for it, right? The contact area for it. And yeah, you're right. It's not a full pivot. It's still within that same service. So, hey, so great example there, Danny. You've one of the things I wrote down here is that you've written that AI can't replace a fantastic agent, which I think is such a it's a really an interesting concept. You're in a business that provides AI-driven player protection solutions. Where do you see that where kind of the one area ends and the other starts? Because I think that gray area is where a lot of people kind of feel very unclear on where the handover is, if you will.
So things will change super quickly. If you look at the history of technology in the last 30, 40 years, if you think about the dot-com revolution, can you imagine, not having your phone or not having the internet now to be able to work? Like, that sounds insane. But when these ideas came through, everyone was very scared about losing their jobs and very scared about the new technology and what that might mean to them. But if you look at the numbers and the statistics that haven't to hand, but the amount of jobs that have been created through new technology far outweighs the ones that were closed. And we're going through a new type of revolution now with AI. And we're going to go on a very similar journey where things that we can't comprehend now will become available very soon. I think it was Elon Musk who was talking about his Grok and how Grok, this newest iteration, is thinking at the same level and better than a PhD student, someone who's got a PhD even. And he's not using it reading between the lines, being able to allow for you and I to be able to have good, conversations. He's using it to be able for it to detect new technology and new opportunities and things that we haven't yet. Opens up a crazy world. So getting back to the point about how we use AI today, we use it as an assistant. So it's an assistant tool. So it can think quicker than us. It can pull data quicker than us. And it's amazing for that. And we should use that, like I do day to day, to be able to give us a base, to give us information that we wouldn't have been able to do, would have taken us time to be able to do. And for us as humans, as managers, to look at that data and analyze it and make decisions from it. So in the world of customer support, yes, we have bots, and the bots are very good. And they can even plug into your back end and pull information. Like they do that. But ultimately, that bot can't answer anything. So knowing when the handoff should go over to that person who's very well trained, who can look at that conversation, pull all that information straight away because that's already been done, either make a decision. That's still what human beings are for, and will be for quite some time. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. It's like an escalation funnel almost, right? A filter funnel. So, hey, one of the things that you spoke about before this question was how you're great at identifying opportunities, creating the right environment for it, spotting it, enabling people to then take that opportunity by the horns and run with it, right? How do you do that when something goes wrong? How do you deal with that? Like, who do you call? Who do you lean on for advice? Do you have mentors in your environment where you feel I need to talk this through before it actually materializes? How do you go through that?
Absolutely, you need, and if you don't have a mentor or coach, I very much recommend that you find someone who you can speak to. So I've got couple. I've got Warren Jacobs, who I set up a couple of businesses with. It's been very successful. Has a completely different way of thinking to me. We work well together, but we're not alike. So he always has a different way of thinking and doing things. And I like to think he does the same. You call me, we can have good conversations about things. There's a gentleman, Vikas Shah, MBE, who if some of the stuff he's done, he's a serial entrepreneur. He also does a lot of interviewing very famous people about very interesting subjects. And he's one of those people. Do you have conversations with someone where you're just like, I never thought of that. I have no idea. It just makes you feel a little bit like it's like, but also a little bit like, wow, how did you think of that? And I didn't. He's one of them. So basically, you'll say something to him, have you thought of this? And he'll come up with ideas and concepts, or he can introduce you to the right person. And both of these people you can talk through things with. Know that it's not going to go anywhere. Know that when you maybe say something out of turn that you shouldn't have said, they're not going to judge you for it and give you time to come down and do that. So yeah, having people around me like that is it's key, because there's not many people where you could, when you've had a really bad day in the office, you can really call up and won't either judge you silently or almost use it again, like use it, even if they don't mean to. So yeah, having those is amazing.
How did you find them? Like, for anybody maybe listening, going, I would love a mentor as well. How did it materialize for you?
So I think Warren was my boss at one point. So in the company, and I was working there, and it kind of very quickly escalated to us doing business together. Now we do separate things, so we have control of different businesses, but he focuses in one area, I focus somewhere else. So there's a collection of interests. Yeah, and I think Vikas, there's an organization called TIE, TIE. It's a collection of entrepreneurs around the world. And I think I went to one of their events and I met him there. And yeah, he's part of our kind of core group of people now. He's the chairman of Ridentify.
Such an important thing to do, to be able to lean on experience and stuff that you can't see yourself, right? Sometimes I always say we're kind of stuck in our own bottle. We can't read the label sitting on the inside, right? So what are some things about your leadership that they see that you didn't see before? Do you have examples of that? Things that, areas that you hadn't thought about on how you perhaps lead, or perhaps decisions that you make?
Yeah, I think that they would say that I can move very quickly. As that's a key skill for me and something that's been good in the past. Sometimes they encourage me to be thoughtful, a little bit older than I am, and really and consider some of those things. I think he's a people person in a different way to what I am. I'm a people person as in, like, I build very strong relationships with core people, a core group of people that I want to work with, that I want to be, outside of work, want to be friends with, that, and they become people that I very rarely let go of. He's very good at fostering those kind of relationships as well, of course, but commercial relationships, long-term, day in, day out relationships, like with clients, investors, whoever that might be. And he's helped me a lot to develop that skill, which is it's slightly different, and that's been something that I've had to work on. It's not always been the quickest and the easiest for me. So he's been really good like that. And yeah, with Vikas, he's visionary. So I'll be thinking about, okay, well, how can I turn this into £5 million, £10 million business? I think that's really good, right? That at some point turned to me aspirational. But he's more about, how do you disrupt? What are we doing differently here? How do we turn this into, a multi-million-pound machine that prints money? And and he's really like, okay, so it's not just about what's your differentiator in your area. It's about really like, look at your whole TAM here, and how do you disrupt, what already exists? It's a completely different way of thinking. And that's something that I learned a lot of from him. So all my ideas now, all the things I work on, Sometimes I can drive the team crazy because, okay, we're doing well in one area, but I'm instantly thinking about, well, how do we grow that? What can we do differently? What other markets are there? How do we turn this into the absolute best it can possibly be?
So difficult to do it by yourself, right? Unless you actually have to answer that question that somebody asks you. How do we kind of Grant Cardone style? How do we 10x this? It's very difficult to answer that. What about your personal life, your well-being, your balance in life? I mean, there's so much demands on your time, and you've got a family as well. Have you found that over time? Is that something that you've learned to prioritize more? Is it something you have to sacrifice over time? How not only family but also your own well-being, your health, taking care of yourself? How's that gone? It's something that I see a lot of founders struggle with. So I'd love to hear your take on it.
In recent years, I've prioritized it a lot. So what? So it's also understanding what you need. So for me, I was maybe pleasing and trying to make everybody happy, like constantly. In a home environment, you need someone that's going to make you happy, make you comfortable, as well as much as you make them comfortable. I think having that, first of all, helps a lot because it's someone you can really kind of rely on. I spend a lot of time with my kids. I find being with them relieves the stress of work. So yes, it's tiring when they're jumping on you at 6:30 in the morning. No, I don't want to go swimming at 10 a.m. On a Saturday sometimes, but works for me as a way of relieving stress, day-to-day stress from work, and gives me an outlet, which I really enjoy. So people ask me all the time, like I get it a lot where they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm thinking about taking a holiday. Is that okay?" And like even from like really senior people, and I'm like, "Why are you even like looking at me like you're guilty for that? Be proud to take a holiday. You've earned it. Go and have some fun. Spend time with your family. You come back stronger." So for me, no, I do try and have a work-life balance. I work hard, and if you ask my partner, she'd say to you that, yeah, Danny's on his phone a lot at night time when we're watching TV. Okay, I am. Do you know what I mean? I've got stuff to do, but I do prioritize being around the family, and I do prioritize going on holiday and enjoying that. I think it's really something that works for me for both work and personal life, doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, last question for you. So if you could go back to the Danny first thought about starting Ridentify, what would you tell him? Maybe not to sacrifice or to prioritize?
Such a good question. Prioritize moving quickly, but have a concrete vision of what it's going to look like. Prioritize your team, not just people you found working with, but also your developers. Make sure they understand the mission and the vision. That for me is essential. If you try and start up a technology startup and you don't have the right engineering team, you're dead from day one.
Yeah. Technical debt, but yeah.
So yeah, prioritize spending time on the team at all levels. Get that right. Yeah, and then what would I sacrifice? What would I think less about? I think it's knowing when to stop. So everyone talks about really like making sure that you follow through and everything and you execute, but don't execute completely the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Like don't let me tell you to follow your dreams and your vision if everything is saying no.
Yeah.
Use those no's to align, realign. Don't be stubborn. Don't be pig-headed.
Thank you very much, mate. Fantastic podcast. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for joining today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining me on the iGaming Leader podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, head over to iGamingLeader.com for more conversations and insights. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. I'm your host, Leo Judkins, and I hope to see you next week.